Today is March 3rd, 2018, a lazy uh, Saturday. There's not much going on. Uh, my debris field is more filled than ever. And you can see there on my PC screen or monitor that I have turned early in the morning here. It's still long before noon, and I found a few articles worth reading. This particular effort refers to Jacobin's a reference to the health of nations, an edition they recently published in hard copy. And, the first thing I thought of when I saw that was, what a sardonic reference to the old saw that war defines the health of a nation. I'm sure they are aware that some people think that's true. There are some other articles, though. One is by an activist in West Virginia calling on educated people to act for themselves, given the ossified labor management conundrum. And of course, in the context of the impending decision to be handed down from the Supreme Court. And my prediction is that they won't really help very much. It's as though when it comes to moral hazards, the brightest minds just don't even bother to revisit the problems established long ago in terms of poor choices having to do with funding unions and so on. But the fact of the matter is what I think is that the Supreme Court's likely to choose between two unhappy alternatives. I don't see any prospect for anything better. And recently I commented on the fact that the people involved in West Virginia and the teachers' strike and so on theoretically involve educated people. And I've simply thought, well, if not anybody else, then what? Educated people ought to be able to take care of their own problems. They're supposed to work for educated people. It's supposed to be educated people working for educated people, although, several days ago, apart from all of the recent news about their strike and so on, I had looked into web pages from school sorts in West Virginia and found out that some hadn't been updated since 2016. And then I saw some listings that showed the enormous overhead of the educational establishment in West Virginia. I mean, really. And to think that, on the other hand, as the article I read today opined, the Sinecured people of labor unions are what? Inept? I think that's a fair estimate. But anyway, the developments in West Virginia very recently indicate that some of the rank and file are willing to take matters into their own hands, and I guess one dimension of that is fortunate for them in that they are not necessarily thought of as riffraff. Theoretically, they are educated people. That might be an unfair advantage because the unwashed deserve some favorable consideration. But be that as it may, the labor movement has changed over the years. Generally, people are better educated than during the 1920s or 30s. Both labor and management, in a nominal way. But really, so many are wound up toys, culturally or intellectually, that it's difficult to be really optimistic, particularly if the legal establishment, the political establishment, continues just to let people roil around with each other without dealing with moral hazards. And I don't like what's happened to the labor movement, but it's complicated. And in any event, the idea, of course, would be, wouldn't it, to have more social mobility now than ever before. But in today's culture, that just means, a petty bourgeoisie that is almost unspeakable. Well, anyway, though, I care about what might happen in West Virginia, particularly if they are able to achieve anything before the Supreme Court might squelch developments that are long overdue. I'd like to think that the Supreme Court could tell people to get to work on the problems, but, they'll probably do something that serves interests that they hold dear. And I'm not sure what those might be, really. I just don't know. And one thing's certain, I don't have anything useful to say about it. That's for sure. I don't know what'll happen that would change that, so that many might, whether I would or not. Well, anyway, I hardly leave the room here. This is about all I can do for the foreseeable future. I don't feel very well, and so I'm glad to have something to read that sometimes is theoretically of interest, but that if it's only academic, then, well, that takes the edge off.